back. Hope you're having a good day. I'm going to do some pruning on a few of my rain trees today. I'm going to get a little bit of wire on this guy too. This one has had wire on it. Most recently I had these branches over here wired down. When I get it a little bit smaller here in a minute, we can take a closer look. You can see where I had some of the wire bite in a little bit. I've just taken it off and letting it go in the hopes that it'll just kind of heal those wire scars a bit, and it has. This cutting is just about 3 years old. I was going to take these two branches here, these long ones obviously, and make them sacrifice branches, and then once I realized they were in a decent spot there, and I kind of envisioned perhaps, you know, having a smaller apex with just two really wide branches. That's kind of what I've been shooting for here. That's what I'm going to stay with. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of compact this guy a little bit today. I guess before I started pruning, I could have showed you both sides. It is very hard to get a good camera shot on here because of how wide it is. That's the other side here. I'll go ahead and take that off. It's got a ton of new growth exploding on it. I didn't really want it putting in, you know, too much more energy into these shoots that were going to go out here really long. You can probably tell the different color. Although it's been inside now long enough for me to do, you know, for me to take the video here. And I've noticed the leaves are starting to closing up and you can't really see the difference in the colors all that much like you could a couple seconds ago. Alright, and then here in the apex, some reason it is a very apically dominant plant, but since I had, you know, it originally intended these to be sacrifice branches, and I've just been kind of trying to prune and wire them. It hasn't put a ton of energy into the apex like I thought it would. I'm going to show you a couple buds here in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and take this tall one down. And let's see if I can get a good example for you guys to see here. I'm going to take a few of these out. When we're talking directional pruning on a tree like this, if I was to cut it here, it would die back to this node and grow out that way. And similarly, if I was to cut back there, it would die back to this node and grow out that way. And you can see right there on the tip that this thing has new growth at every one of those spots there. So the apex was getting ready to explode with a bunch of growth. And that's kind of, I just wanted to hold it back and let it go all at once, rather than kind of sporadically, because on the longer shoots, they weren't getting a bunch of new growth. It was just getting new growth down in here. So that's one of the reasons for my pruning today. And also it just had a ton of foliage on it, and it's using up a lot more water than usual. I'm still working, school isn't out, and I can't water it twice a day. When I come home, they do look super thirsty. I do realize that these trees will open and close their leaves several times. But these really do, some of the tips of them have actually been looking burnt when I get home from work. Bit of a closer look at it there. Take a look at that side too. I'll get just a bit of wire on it. Just try to get this branch down and kind of on level with the rest of it. And this one as well. Let's see what we can do. Alright, and upon closer inspection, I wound up just anchoring this branch to this one here. The only two branches I really wanted to bring down at all were those two, and I was going to anchor them together. But I also saw I had a secondary branch right here with a ton of growth coming off of it. And I remember at one point this was the lower branch, so I wanted to put a ton of growth that way. And I think I've done enough to where they've kind of balanced out, because at first this one was noticeably bigger, and it is noticeably balanced out a little more than it was. I'm going to go ahead and take this part out. And then it's a little bit better there. That is the lower branch, and it's got more growth on it. But now I can kind of let this side catch up a little bit. It had perhaps maybe a little bit too much on there. Get a good look with that whole thing in the frame there. And then take a look at the other side. Very excited to see what this tree looks like in the future. Alright, then we got this one. Again, another one really hard to get all on the camera at once. I had the lowest branch. This was a failed air layer. It had a little bit of dead wood on it at one point, which is where the tree had died back. And then, like I say, a failed air layer. It was an air layer that I put on. I gave up on. I took it off. And then I just, put it in some soil because I right at the last minute realized that it seemed as if there was a little life left in it. And it sprouted, but it sprouted only down on the low parts, and so it left a little dead wood behind. I took the dead wood out, but that's where this bulge is. I might be able to show it to you a little bit more once I get everything pruned up. The lowest branch on it was right here, and I've been letting that go as a sacrifice branch. This whole bit right here, I can make the trunk a little bit thicker than the spot where that dead wood was, and then I actually got really lucky and had a little bit of a lower branch pop right here. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this first sacrifice branch off. There is a spot here where I pruned, so this branch will not only help heal up that, but it's also coming from the bottom of that. So as it grows, it should spread and become part of the trunk. And then when I go to cut it off, it won't be as high up as this one. It won't have as much of a wound to heal. So I'm going to use concave cutters, but I'm not going to go right up against the trunk. Rain trees will have dieback. Not too bad for a sacrifice branch. It's even starting to get some secondary branches on there. And now, the other idea I've had is I wanted to leave a sacrifice on there and actually be able to work the tree a little more, but with the way that one was kind of crowding it together there, it was hard to even see what it was I'm looking for. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in here and go down and leave a node or two out from where the last time was I pruned it. Couple of these longer places I might even go a little shorter than it was the last time, just as long as I'm not cutting at the same exact spot each time. This branch, I'm going to take a look at that branch in a minute. I've been thinking about eliminating that one, but it was hard to see with the sacrifice on there. I'm going to take a look at it here in a second after I get the rest of it pruned. Here, I think I am going to go a node lower than I did. And let me take a close look at this. Alright, so let's get a little bit of a closer look up at it. I had given some consideration either taking this branch off or this one. But I do think when you see these type of tropicals, like in the woods around here, if you will, they do get that candelabra look. They actually, even in the wild, have a little reverse taper, although I am going to try to leave the sacrifice on long enough to take care of that. There is where the other one was. But right here, let's see if I can get in there a little bit better. That's where that deadwood was. That's where the original intended air-to-air foliage was. The bottom was the same, you know, or the where it meets the substrate was the same. But that, you know, it had a nice little crown off of that, and I tried keeping that as like a deadwood feature, but it really looked out of place. It was really too small to do anything with, I feel like. And then it's the reason why I'm not cutting off this branch is because it's the only growth that's on that side of where it died back, and I don't want to have a big hollow there. I mean, it may not look good, bad for a feature, but for right now, until I take care of the inverse taper down here, I think I am going to go ahead and leave it. When I first got these trees, I was dedicated to staying clip and grow, and now I've wired all of them up except for this one pretty much. So I am going to try to keep this one a clip and grow. I think I can make a pretty cool tree out of it with just pruning. Alright, and the last one I'm going to look at today is this one. Again, it's one of these trees, very hard to get all in the same picture. This one was actually broken. This was a stump that I actually broke off that last tree I just had in here. It was growing like a clump. It was a clump of 3. I was able to get this one. And then now actually where that sacrifice branch is, that last smaller one that I still have on there, I also cut that off. So that was 2 shoots coming off of it. Now I'm trying to just make the one trunk out of this one. Very happy it survived. It was a little bit of a just kind of long shot. I took a root splitter and I split it off the bottom and just put it in this little pot. I have one piece of wire on it. I was just trying to get down a couple of primary branches. I do like the design of that first one. So that's kind of the look I was going for on it. The growing tips out here are going crazy. But I did figure that it's barely visible, but every one of the thorns and or nodes is getting a little bit of growth on it too. So I think I have the opportunity to go ahead and just give it a hard prune and let it back bud a little, you know, not even a little more, just a lot more, just get a lot more buds closer to the trunk. So I'm going to cut it way back and then see what I can do with the wire. I actually had the wire out to this point here, so all of this is new growth since the last time I did anything with it. I'm just going to go right back up to the wire and choose a directional side that comes off this way. This one almost needs to come completely off because it's growing straight up. I'm going to get pretty aggressive with it. I'm going to leave a bit, and if it dies back there and then I can get a shoot to come down, that would be better than any more going up. This one, I thought that I might be able to, it's flexible enough where I could wire it down, but the way it is now, I'd almost have to wire it where it would be either upside down or wanting to flip over all the time. So I think I'm just going to take it out. It's got plenty of growth right below it. And again, should get another shoot out that way. It's springtime here in Florida and everything is just growing great, so I don't think I'm going to have any problem there. Move this guy again. This side also had some wild growth on it. Wire went right here, and I was hoping there was like some nodes there. I was hoping it would also back bud this way, but instead it just continued going that way. And I'm going to take everything off above the first node that comes that direction, which would be, you know, growing out for the tree. This one just sprouted up top. I'm going to take that one off. Just that's coming way too straight up to even think about keeping. And then go ahead and directionally prune that one just away from all that growth on that side. And then there's this one here. I don't want to try to make it part of the crown. I just want to keep it as a branch though. So I'm not going to cut it back quite as hard. I mean, from what it was, it's very skinny, but now there's 3 or 4 nodes left on that new growth. And same with this one, I'm just going to clip it a bit. Closer look. I know in some school of thought, you take and wire the apex up, and there's probably plenty of deciduous I would choose to do that on, but these have such strong growth. Rather than wiring it up, I'm just going to clip it in place to where it is just growing up there rather than wiring up a longer one. And again, left some of that newer growth up there, 2 or 3 nodes. Should explode up this way, should explode every way. Actually, right now with the time of year it is, gonna start raining soon. Trees really love the rainwater. All right, I did say I'd take a look at the wire, and the wire was cutting in there and just there. If you guys can see that. And really nowhere else, because I wrapped it kind of loose. The thorns make it pretty hard to wrap tight. And so what I did was just wrap the wire around the opposite way. Do have it a little bit tighter out here towards the end. When I did it that first time, it was just an initial getting the branches down. Got a little more movement in them this time. Thought about getting a secondary one on there, but it's not the strongest branch in the world, and I really don't think I could have got any side to side. I could have just got it down some. But I'll just leave that one alone for now. And then I did decide, since this branch is a little higher than the other branch, that I could take the end of it off there too. And see how that works out in the long run. Really is too bad how at the end of working on these, the leaves always look so sad from being out of the sunlight.